So I know my wife is going to rise from the dead and kill us in our sleep because I actually bought a TV for the cabin.
Oh boy.
She's going to crawl out of her. I just watched McClintock with my granddaughter the other night, so that was fun.
I haven't seen that show in years.
That's a little not PC. It's so much.
Oh, yeah. Totally on PC.
Actually, you know what's funny is they brag on John Wayne as a racist. But race actually is in that movie. And he defends the Chinese cook and the Indians and the.
Yeah.
It was last weekend. I didn't get to go. I thought about going. It was at the Lone Pine Film Festival.
Oh, yeah.
And they actually do like horseback rides where they go through the Alabama hills and they'll point out where certain scenes were shot. And
Well, I told you I've seen.
I'm going to go next year for sure.
I've seen some of those movies, and they're riding along, and there's Mount Whitney in the background.
Every freaking car commercial has the Sierras in the background.
Yeah, but it's a lot of them out there in Ravenscroft and Lancaster.
Yeah, I know that.
That airport right there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the
Right.
runway is always just used for those car commercials.
So how funny.
I used to do a lot of geology up outside of Bishop too, and I think that all the mountain roads going up in the White Mountains, actually, you'll see all the test cars, like they're just always up and down those mountain roads because it's twisty and turny, but then there's not any traffic on it and they're well-maintained roads. So,
We stay great.
yeah.
You go to the summer, cars keep tested out.
All that. That's funny.
Yes.
Well, out there by California City, they got that. Yeah, test train down there.
Yep.
And so that was really fun, we also soccer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Where's that been?
No say?
Are they wanting to watch the Dodgers? Are they playing?
Okay.
Okay, good morning, everybody. We'll get started in about 1 minute here. It's 11 o'clock right now. We'll just give it another minute for people to join.
I can't remember if I discovered Eastern Stereo. It was one of the, in my youth, I went through a long Ansel Adams phase. So in my late teens, I would have known about that. And then also, I started out as a geology major. So yeah. Those field trips the field trip was up and down the Eastern Sierra all the way up to Mammoth.
I was telling Andy I took one of my sons up to Devil's Post Pile.
That's great.
And it's about a half-mile walk from the parking lot. Walking over there, he's complaining the whole way. I said, wait till you see it.
Until you get there, you got to get up and over.
Yeah, when you're on, as soon as he saw it, he goes, oh my God.
That's a fun spot.
Yeah. It's pretty unbelievable.
That's the agenda for the Seagull
I didn't get
Conference.
any traffic.
Always really good.
Yeah.
There's so much
Yeah, go ahead and start.
from stuff that was from the agenda this time. It's
I
usually
think we're good.
doing okay. Right.
Hey, Aaron. Hey, Aaron,
Yeah, Mark.
was it 6 buses or 7?
Thank you for participating in today's meeting.
Or trams.
Please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the
For
room, and please
Placentia.
silence all devices. Click
Oh,
the
for
button at the bottom of the
Placentia,
screen,
7.
select either English or Spanish.
That's what I
Public
thought. Thank you.
comment will be taken after each item. If you are in the auditorium and wish to comment, please use the iPads located in the lobby. For meetings in other locations, please complete a blue speaker card and provide it to a South Coast AQMD employee. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all agenda items, and times may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. Word time will be allotted for Spanish translation that is not simultaneous. For questions or issues on public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-3247. That's 909-396-3247. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect.
Your choice.
Also, can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you are authorizing recording of audio and visual content presenting to a live event, and the subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
Just in case that is a person, another option.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I see we have a little bit of light attendance today, but I think that's okay. We have our EJ conference going on down at USC today, so I don't know if there's folks attending down there, but we will plow ahead anyway. So good morning, everybody. My name is Ian McMillan. I'm the Assistant Deputy Executive Officer for the Planning Division here at South Coast AQMD. My boss, Sarah, who's normally here, wasn't here last time. She was out of town on a work-related matter. This time she's out of town on vacation, much deserved vacation in someplace cold and rainy, which I think is exactly what she wants. So she should be back next time. So I'll try to get us through the agenda for everything today. So I'll just do a quick note. We did have a slight change to the board agenda. So agenda item number 1 for this meeting as we go through the board agenda for November. We had a slight change on that. The most recent one was sent out, and that should be the printed version in front of you, should be the most recent one. But the one that I believe is online currently has 23 items. This one has 22 items. One of the items that came off was for the SB 1928 report that we're just bringing to December. So just a little more work on that. That was on the consent item. So
It's SB 1928?
that's the report of all the rules and everything that we've
Okay.
done, sort of the annual report that goes up to the legislature. So with that, we're going to go ahead and go through the board agenda as we normally do. We typically jump straight into the public hearing items. So we're going to go ahead and start with item number 21, which is for proposed amended rule 1151. Mike, do you want to take us through that one?
Sure, no problem, Ian. Thank you for the intro. Okay, so 1151 is the rule that regulates the VOC emissions from coatings used at basically at auto body shops, non-assembly line ones. So like a lot of spray boost, things like that. The goal here is to work on phasing out 2 toxics that we had in recent years, as defined as potentially cancer causing and as assigned potency factors to those compounds. We've been working with the stakeholders, that's the manufacturers or the formulators of the coatings, as well as those impacted by this particular rule, in phasing out to more of an immediate phase out. There's a couple months there, but pretty much an immediate phase out of those compounds. In doing so, however, we recognize that there needs to be a substitution for those operations. We don't want to disrupt that. So we are allowing for a couple of those categories by which there's those compounds being used to allow this to be a temporary bump up in VOC emissions. I say temporary, it is about a couple of years, so 3 to 5 years, to allow for those reformulations to happen. The manufacturers feel pretty optimistic about that, and then being able to meet back to those same VOC limits in those future years reformulation. So again, there will be a bump up in those VOC emissions. We understand the trade-off, but we also are removing toxics more immediately out of these facilities. These facilities do tend to be in places like neighborhoods and things like that, so there's a high concern. We did also look for some opportunities, and we were able to find just a few opportunities to actually get a little bit lower emissions. Doesn't produce a huge amount, but overall in the end, we will get a reduction of 0.2 tons per day of VOC emission reductions. That's our.
Thanks, Mike. Ron.
Do you expect other rules will have to be address this issue?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we're working on 3 other rules. These are primarily rules, by the way. Coatings is an area source, so we typically not that, like in the case of architectural coatings, not permitted. However, there are areas like in the auto body shop world or aerospace, wood coatings, as well as metal coatings that do typically have spray boosts that are typically permitted. So all 3 of those rules will be addressed in similar fashion.
Thanks. Mark, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, just really quickly, with the temporary, whatever, however long that is, temporary increase in VOC, does that put us at risk at all with our AQMP or with clean air, the Clean Air Plan or the Clean Air Act? And does it, would we get accused of backsliding, or, and wouldn't it be required a CEQA? You said it says there's no CEQA impact, but I'm just curious if that puts us at risk.
Sure. No, because this is temporary, Mark, and because 1, it's temporary, but 2, also all those same categories, we're allowing that bump, but we are ratcheting it back down again. So the plan is concerned about those long term, right? long-term impacts to the region. And again, we're ratcheting this down before we sort of reach that next milestone.
Okay, so and they're okay, the CARB and EPA are okay when we say temporary. We don't know what it means.
Yeah, we have alerted them on that matter, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Some random technical jurisdictional questions. So CARB has consumer products like nail polish and deodorant, whatever, but we've got paints. So,
Right.
or is it because they're in booths, they're in one location and you can sort of
Right,
regulate
right. I
that?
mean, this was an issue that was kind of brought up like many decades ago. As far as authority is concerned, we're challenged by that ages ago. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't know those details. But ultimately, because those are the ones that are being utilized, distributed, et cetera, and sold here in our region, we have that authority to do that regulation. So it's a number of coatings rules that we already currently regulate.
Okay.
On May 5, or May 6, I guess that's coming up. Are they already looking at those chemicals? Those toxics?
Okay. Tara, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, thank you. When will we be kind of getting the full staff report on this item, or should I be basing it off of what was reviewed in the stationary source committee?
So the current draft document is available already online, but we will be, this one's going to the board. Yeah, so, but we'll be resending the latest package out on Friday.
Okay, and there was a public comment period for this?
Correct.
And when did it end?
A while ago, 3 weeks ago, I would say was our last public comment period. So so you'll find, Tara, in the package will be the rule, the staff report, and in that staff report, we'll have any of the comments, letters that we received and the responses to those comments.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, so seeing no more questions on.
I have my hand up, I do.
Oh, Deborah, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. Go ahead.
No, Tara asked the first question that I had was when we expect to see the package, but I know that we had, Michael, I know we had some comment letters from Rita Loof and her organization. Have you resolved any of those issues, or do we expect to hear a lot of folks coming up and commenting on this?
We don't expect a lot of people commenting on this. It's just been an issue that Rita has raised, but just to kind of re-highlight to everybody for their edification. One of the things she mentions is under our record keeping requirements, which are, by the way, existing requirements. There are no new requirements. I think the misunderstanding there is when you look at the rule, there's some underlined sections of the reporting requirements. Just so you all know, these are actually existing requirements. We reformatted the rule to make it more clear, like this is a whole record keeping section. Earlier versions of the rule had these requirements under another section. It was kind of confusing. So we basically we do this when we work on our rules to reformat them to make them, we think, a little bit more clear. So there was a misunderstanding thinking that this was a new requirement. It's not new. These are existing requirements. Secondly, she noted that she's already doing the record keeping under 109. That is true. However, the rule also specifically states that the records shall be, done pursuant to 109. So we already are, nothing's changed, in that regard. Okay.
I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Not a problem.
And so the universe of those that will be doing record keeping won't increase, or it'll be the same as dictated in 109?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And to go back to my question about the item 21 is not online and it's not in the staff, the assistance briefing packet. So.
Mike, the 1151 proposed rule materials, that's all available on our proposed rules webpage?
Proposed rules page, that's right.
Yeah, so Tara, all of our rules, all those preliminary draft staff reports, preliminary draft rule language, we have a proposed rules page where all of that is, we centralize all of that information there until we get right before the board meeting itself, when that all gets part of the full board package.
Right, it gets released 1 week before the board meeting, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I don't see any more hands raised on this item. So why don't we go ahead and move forward? Thank you, Mike. And then for the next item, number 22 on 1173, let's turn back to Mike.
By the way, apologies, some of my planning managers are not here today, to protect some other rules. They're at a funeral this morning, so, okay. So for 1173, this is the rule that regulates VOC emissions from components that are found at refineries, chemical plants, oil and gas production sites, etc. When I say components, I'm talking about valves and flanges, fittings, plugs, things like that. So those smaller pieces. This is an existing rule, and we've had an ongoing regulation with regards to those facilities. And basically, the idea is looking out for where there could be leak potential and to make corrective action. Right now, the rule requires that on a quarterly basis. However, with some new technology, the OGIs, or the optic gas imaging, we've now are requiring that to be done at those sites on a monthly basis. So we went from quarterly to monthly. This increases, hopefully, the number of leaks getting detected more sooner and thus getting repaired, and thus creates more VOC emission reductions. In addition, we're lowering some standards for most of the components. What I mean by that is as that equipment is detecting, it comes up with a concentration number of what that volatile organic compound is. There's a threshold in the rule currently by which they have to make that corrective action. And we're lowering that standard. And again, the idea is that we're catching more of these leaks more sooner than later, and thus taking action. In addition, we are including some what we call contingency measures. This helps. I know you probably have already heard Ian talk about these when it comes to the air quality management plan. That is a requirement under the California the Clean Air Act, the U.S. Clean Air, to require what we call contingency measures, meaning that if you don't meet, let's say, a particular air quality standard, or you don't meet a particular milestone as set forth in the Clean Air Act, that there is a rule that's already in the books, it's already been approved, that isn't being implemented yet, but could be triggered as a result of missing some of those milestones, and then that action would then be take place. So we've actually introduced 3 of those measures into the rule, and the stakeholders didn't seem to have too much heartburn with those. This will, oh, by the way, overall will reduce emissions, VOC emissions, we estimate 2 tons per day. So it's a really important rule and a lot of emission reduction.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Question? Yeah.
I have a question, Mr. Crosby.
Sure.
And this is a question that was asked during the recent AB 617 meeting in the city of Linwood. I think, were you there? I think you were. They were asking if when a leak is detected, what type of recourse takes place with the facility? Like, are they fined? Are they, as soon as something is detected? I mean, I'm glad to know, and I'm sure that the community, the EJ community is glad to know that this is going to be happening on a monthly basis rather than a quarterly basis. But what are the consequences when something is detected every month?
Right, great question. So again, this is an existing rule, just to be clear. So there has been already effective actions and things in place in the rule with regards to time frame. So there is a certain time frame. There are different requirements, but because it depends, right? So if you're like at this leak that's super large, let's say there's a certain concentration, they have a more shorter time frame by which, like a 24-hour time period to do correction or stop that process, because that's a large leak. So it's sort of tiered, right? And then there's lesser amount of a leak, provides a little bit more additionality time for that. They are required to notify us. And again, as you ratchet down, there might be a little bit longer time frames or different requirements. You typically don't have an immediate violation because of that leak if you don't follow what the requirement is, meaning that if you identify that leak, contact us, and then you make the corrective action, there's no violation. You've now completed that. If you contact us and we go out and we find out you have not corrected that leak, then it becomes the violation.
Okay. As staff was not sure how to answer that, and I know that they were being reprimanded by the audience. So I was in my head, I was like, you know what, we need the bosses here to answer some of these questions, because staff was not able to answer some of those
little nuances
questions, not little, but technical questions that the community had. And so I would recommend the next time we have bosses there. the managers.
Yeah, good feedback.
But all right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on 1173? Seeing none, why don't we go ahead and keep moving on the agenda? So then that means we're going to move backwards on the board agenda itself. We'll go up to our set hearing items. So on number 2, this is going to be one that has some considerable interest for amended rules 1111 and 1121. And so you get to hear from Mr. Kraus again.
Apologies. Okay, so just a reminder of everyone that 1111 is our rule that regulates nitrogen oxide emissions from residential and light commercial furnaces, or otherwise known as space heating. 1121 regulates residential water heating. Both of these proposals are looking to propose a zero emission limit for those pieces of equipment out there. And theirs are based on future effective dates. In addition, we sort of differentiate between whether something is a new build or an existing building. In addition, we're differentiating between, let's say, a residential home versus a mobile home. And so there's that as well. The rule also includes certain alternative compliance options, because we wanted to recognize, if you're familiar with 1146.2, we did something similar, whereby they have a provision if there's a situation by which you need an emergency replacement, you're not able to just the next day suddenly have like an electric, fuel switching, you're going to need to have some transitional period there, and the rule allows for that. As well as also we were highlighted certain situations by which a construction need is taking place. If the area by which the existing unit is located needs to be changed out as far as a footprint or something like that. Again, providing a provision and some kind of relief for those pathways. That's the basic.
Okay. Thanks.
So let's, all right, so I'm Joe Blow homeowner. At what point is gas water heaters not going to be available when mine goes out 20 years from now?
Right. So we have a date for those upon which afterwards. Oh, thank you for reminding me, Andrew. So this also gets triggered when you do natural replacement. So there's not like, unlike 1146.2 where it says by a certain date one does this transition. This is when you are going to be doing a natural transition. So we do have a date stated, for example, for what you're using your question is a water space.
What's the difference?
There. So after the year 2028, when one replaces their space heating equipment, they'll replace that with a zero emission technology. And again, with some caveats of these certain pathways if needed. For the water heating, it's 2027.
So sorry, I didn't review this before I came over, but I looked at it before. But I'm just thinking, whatever a water heater costs is whatever a water heater costs, and that's fine. But panel upgrades or having to knock out something in my garage or something can get really, really expensive in a hurry. So is there?
Yeah, so when we did the analysis, we used real data. So there's a group called Tech, and they are a statewide group, and they have been issuing the incentives for all sorts of building appliances, right? And they have like lots of raw data because they're actually doing those, they're providing those incentives and they're getting the real data. So as far as like the size of the unit, the cost of that unit, the cost to install the unit, if and when upgrades, electrical panel upgrades are needed, because not everybody necessarily needs it, depends on your home, so it's a case by case scenario. But it does show real, it does provide, they do provide real data as far as if they needed it, how much that would have cost, O&M costs, etc. So we've utilized all this real world data as it goes into our cost analysis, and has shown that it is cost effective. And I think one of the bigger points is that when you look at the usage of the natural gas furnace, right, and we know their power needs, right, because again, that's another piece of real world data. Okay, you equate that from how much you're needing to operate on a natural gas level, you equate that power need on an electric level, and while electric prices, the cost, tends to be right now on the given okay, more expensive than say gas, if you are making that comparison. When you look at the efficiency, however, of something like a heat pump, which is 3 to 5 times more efficient than operating a natural gas furnace, over the life of that equipment, you're actually seeing fuel cost savings.
Are you experiencing that?
So I'm just,
Well, I've got the heat pump. And it is, I can tell you it's cheaper. I installed a heat pump. And for space heating. And it is a little cheaper.
A little bit?
Yeah.
I have a question about, I know we have 10-ton reduction of NOx, but how much of that, what's the reduction of NOx in the residential portion of it? In regard to the water heater and the.
So it's about 5 and 5 between the space
I
and the water
thought
heating.
I had seen earlier rendition where they were talking about like the 2 and 3 tons. I don't, maybe my recollection is wrong. Well, yeah.
No, our inventory shows it's about 10 tons per year between both the rules, about 10 tons per year. Remember, we're going down to 0. So we'll be capturing all of those reductions.
Okay, another question I have is, the reason we have this rule, is it for ozone or is it for going down to 0?
So this is a NOx emission rule, and ozone, of course, focuses on both NOx and VOC emission reductions.
Yeah, but let me ask you, why would you have the furnaces in there? Furnaces are not used when you're in the ozone season.
Okay, so we have a whole response to that. We can go on this forever on the science of things, but basically our position is a couple fold, you know. First off, there's no regulation, no requirement for people to be running them during, let's say, just a couple hours at night, or there's kind of like argument. And also NOx continues to linger. In addition, NOx is also a precursor to PM, which is a problem. So
well, I know that's a problem, but the primary thing is ozone. And that's what, when I read that, I said,
no. Yeah, I mean, as you know, we have a very complex.
Now, one last thing.
So Ron, if I could really quick on the PM. So PM is definitely an issue for us. That is in the winter
Right, I
season,
understand.
and NOx is a major precursor there. So
I understand, but I don't know if we have any data on how much particulates was going to be reduced by this. I don't know. But here's my other really important question. We know about this rule, but the 17 million people out there don't know about this rule, and it's going to come as quite a shock. And normally what you do when you have a rule, I would think this, I used to do have one of the things I did was the notification system, and we would if we had a rule affecting various SIC codes, I'd go to a mail operation, and they would send it to those SIC companies in the basin, and they can do that. But we don't know, we haven't done any notification of this group of people, who are going to be seriously impacted, some, especially those who are very low income, living from paycheck to paycheck, and also older people who rely on Social Security. It's going to be a shock to them.
Like us.
And even by people with great amount of money like Tom. So I just don't know if there's been any effort to go, I mean, how will you be going out with a press release on this? It seems like people should know about this, because it's in 2027, I think, is when it's
For the water heaters, yeah.
for the water heaters. And
As you know, Ron, it's not new, right? I mean, we've been talking about, we were talking about this way back when we were moving the furnaces, for example, from 40 down to 14. We were actually considering, when we were developing the plans, this is both in 2016 as well as the 2022 plans, this idea of possibly getting the manufacturers to go down to like a 7, right? These are NOx numbers to continue ratcheting out. It was actually the OEMs of of those furnaces that were suggesting to us, like, we have heat pumps that are at 0, like, don't have us go through this whole work, research and development to go from a 14 down to 7, we can just sell a zero emission like heat pump. And I think that's kind of where that line, so this idea, like, it's not new, like we've been having these conversations and we've been working, with the biz feds, and we've been working with the building associations, we've met with the city of LA, the county of LA on their building groups. We've met with mobile home developers. We've met with apartment associations, hospital groups. I mean, it's like, it's not that it's not out there. Now, I do agree with you. We're talking about now, I mean, we are talking about residential. Hope that people are engaged in these, in these level of conversations about it. But I can tell you from the past, people have, usually don't. They don't necessarily, they go and get to change out their furnace, but they don't most people don't sit around and like ask the NOx level or what have you, on these things. So, but it is a fuel switching change, and it will be different for sure.
Well, 1173, one of the communities were very wanting to see that, right? The 1173 rule.
Wanting to see what?
The rule adopted in regard to.
Right.
1173 or the other one.
Get to the board.
Here's my question. Has there been any thought of you folks going out to the various EJ communities and telling them you may have a little surprise down the road on this rule?
We're getting a lot of support actually from the AB 617 group on getting zero emissions, cleaning up the air in these Spanish communities, as well as our Go Zero program.
I understand that, but do they know the cost that's going to be on them?
We don't hide it. Let's put that on.
But you're not going out to the community saying, expect a significant cost when your hot water heater or normally we go out to the impacted industry, but here we have one going out that's going to impact 17 million people or 6 million homes and stuff. And
I mean, these are all
surprised
about,
they're not happy with it. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, we will continue to work on that outreach. I know we have a meeting with Wayne to talk about how we want to continue with that, getting that dialogue out there. I mean, again, these are long implementation dates as well, right? So we're not talking about something that's happening tomorrow, happening, come 2028, 2030 in those times.
Appreciate your point there, Ron. I see Deborah's had her hand raised. I know we've got other hands in the room, but Deborah, you've been very patient. I think your hand might have even been first, so.
No worries. Thank you so much. So Michael, as you know, and for the benefit of my colleagues on the board assistance, this was very much a topic of discussion at the Stationary Source Committee. And one thing that we haven't touched on in your presentation is the mountain communities and the concerns that were raised from them, as well as Mayor McAllen had some serious concerns about the costs of installation and especially up in the mountain communities that he represents. Have you already gone on the field trip to the mountain communities? And if not, when is that set for? I know that there was some discussion to possibly even push this set hearing out a bit so that we can resolve some of these outstanding issues. Could you comment on that, please?
Sure, Deborah. Yes, we actually did just yesterday. We went up to the mountain communities, and it was a really good trip. We really appreciate all the inputs and insight that we got from them. I will tell you, it's sort of a mixed story up there. There's definitely some successes. We went actually to some homes that are fully electric, starting with solar to their furnaces, to their water heating, and to their kitchen appliances. So there was some success stories out there. We recognize it's not for everyone, and we also recognize that it takes time. So there was definitely an interest in getting as much help as they can. They were encouraged about for example, the Go Zero incentive type programs. They were encouraged when we offered this consideration. I know Heather brought this up at the Stationary Source Committee, which was providing a different time frame for them up there at the high altitude areas, and they appreciated that as well. But they do recognize, but they do have some legitimate concerns. One of the things I thought was very compelling was this idea that when they need the emergency replacement, right, which the rule allows for, that's pretty convenient for down in our basin, they call us flatlanders. Anyway, they're very convenient for that because this is where those companies are located. But if you're up in the mountain areas and we don't have a rental place for that, and the heat goes out and it's snowing, you create this scenario, what's gonna be their path forward, how they're gonna get that heat. And that's the real critical element, right? For them, you know, it wasn't necessarily the water end of things, it was definitely on more of the heat end. Again, not really for the AC end, but again, on the heat end. So we really wanted to focus in on that. We have some ideas with them. I just talked to Corey Griggs this morning about this, and we were powwowing some thoughts on how we can kind of, so we basically are gonna be proposing a new provision that we'd like to put in there. Basically really focused in on those types of situations that they're most heightenedly concerned about.
Do you know when we might see that language?
So that will, well, at an endpoint, that's definitely gonna be in the 30-day package. But again, since we're just sort of negotiating out what that would look like today, it wouldn't be, you know, probably before then.
And is there any, I know we don't like to constantly push back rules, but if we were to push this back, is there anything holding us back from a slight delay?
There's no legal mandates for when we take it to the board. We just feel like we're getting really close, so.
Okay, thank you so much.
You bet.
Have you got any feedback from this, Southern California, gas company?
We did get a comment letter from the gas company. We actually got 37 comment letters over the last week, so we're responding back to all of those.
Well, no, my point is that this thing will reduce, the gas company, universe quite a bit to almost nil. That's what I'm saying. And also, it probably will impact, I don't know. Anyway, so, I suspect you'll see a little concern for the gas company.
Andy, go ahead.
Anybody else?
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
Grid capacity? Since we'll have our Teslas plugged in, I can't afford a Tesla, but, anyway, so,
Else I have is what's the timeline that we're giving to residential, commercial? I know it's depending on the age of the buildings. I know that we talked about old buildings, but this one, and new buildings, new installations. So is there a timeline, and does the size of each facility determine a difference in the timeline that we're giving people?
Yeah, so unlike 1146.2 where we had like a definitive, you know, date for those facilities based on, as you say, the unit age of that equipment, we're not proposing that in these rules here. We're going, because these are residences, we don't go into people's homes. It's when they do their natural replacement of those. This is a type of rule that gets regulated based on the manufacturers and the distributors and installers side of things. It's the way it's always been designed and will continue to enforce in that regard. So, yeah, so basically the owners don't have a time limit on that. The only thing we do have, however, is what we call the effective date. So after a certain date, meaning that, let's say, for example, we have an effective date of 2028 for existing buildings. So let's say in the year 2027, someone needs to replace their natural gas, if it breaks down, they can replace that with another natural gas furnace.
And are there any plans in place on providing the industry or developers or residential with incentives to replace whatever existing structures that they have, so that we make sure that it doesn't affect the renters in these facilities, that it's not passed along to the renters?
Okay, so there's a couple things there. So first off, the board did just approve the initiation of our Go Zero incentive program. Actually, we just got some bids back already from some number of consultants and things like that are interested in helping us implement that program. So we'll be bringing that back to you guys. But and that program itself is an incentivized program, both on the space heating as well as the water heating side. It's a whole thing. So it's like whether you're a single family home, you're a multi-family home, whether you're in a disadvantaged or overburdened community, we double the refunds, or the rebates on those. We also have elements with small businesses, training, et cetera. So there's lots of elements going on. So yes, we do have an incentive program, but we do allow for stacking, meaning that if there's any other state programs, whether it's Edison, LADWP, this tech, the state, federal refunds, IRA, et cetera, they can stack those refunds. So that's one element. I think the other point that you're making is this is regulated based on the manufacturer, but in essence, when it comes to the owner, or in the case of the building owner, they'll be responsible when they, let's say, have a centralized boiler, heater, or whatever, what have you, when they do that replacement, they need to replace that with zero emission technology. That is the burden, that's on them to make that happen. With regards to pass-through, our agency itself doesn't have like those levels of authority, but I can tell you that we have looked into the different bills and proposals and things out there on those jurisdictions, like on the state level, and there are a number of efforts out there to see if they can firewall those types of things. And I'm sure it's not just in these realms, it's probably in a number of other areas whereby we're trying to, protect the renter from additional costs.
I mean, because a lot of times they'll use these regulations to switch over to these more modern structures, and then they'll pass on the cost to the renters.
Right.
About that.
The overall cost for this program, this is very simple mathematics, and maybe a little bit off. Minimally would be $15 billion for the residential folks. They could go all the way, if it was $10,000 more, it'd be all the way up to $60 billion. But maybe it just, if it's $2,000 more, then you multiply that by 6 million, and you come up to $10 billion. So that's a pretty expensive program.
Is the socioeconomic analysis out yet, Mike? I think that's going to go through all of these costs.
Yeah.
Well, it's such a simplistic thing, though. I mean, if it's like an average of $2,000 more, well, you have $12 billion over the term of the thing. And it's just a simple thing. You just $2,000.
There's cost savings that'll be coming in as well. But your point is well taken that the scale is.
Can I tell you a little thing I did at my house? I looked at my, and I know it was more efficient maybe. I looked at my gas bill for July through September of this year. And it came out as an average for my house, $17 per month. And then in the previous December 23 to February 24 was average of $59 for gas. However, on Edison, the only thing different between summer and winter for Edison is air conditioning. The average in the winter months was $223, and it was $473 for the summer 3 months. That's a lot, and I know. So they go over to get electric for the heat pumps. It has to be significant more money. This has to be. I don't see any savings. I don't know where. And I read the staff report, and they said we expect to have savings. That can't be. I mean, when you have $250 more to do air conditioning, you would expect going to electric to be significant amount more. It can't be a reduction, at least not for my house, where it's only $59 for gas. So yeah, they need to do some. I don't know. I mean, there has to be some real on the level going out and talking to some people who have transferred over and see if you can compare what the actual reduction is. That's all I got.
It just boils down to the efficiencies of the.
Then maybe if you went out to several location, houses that have done the conversion, you can see if that is actually happening. Yeah, you just can't come up and say, we think it's gonna be less, we don't know, unless you go in and check the comparison. Well, I guess they gave you my comparison, but I haven't gone to heat pumps, so I don't know what the actual, you probably would.
I just know overall, between what we were paying for electric and gas, when we switched over to the heat pump and of course, the gas dropped way down. It was overall, it was a little cheaper, not a lot, but a little bit
But
cheaper.
you're in the mountains too.
Well, foothills, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see some more of those details, bringing up a good point, but I think we'll see some more of those details and, you know, more reports that are coming. Andy, I know you've been waiting.
But one point about the going to the heat pump is you also have the time of use rates. And they go way up at like 5 o'clock. 4 o'clock, yeah. So I mean, and if by 4 o'clock during December and January, it's starting to get really cold outside, so you're gonna turn that thing on. You might not run it that much during the day, but as it starts cooling down, you definitely run it. So, but I still, just overall, it seemed to be a little bit cheaper. It was a little bit cheaper, but gas rates had gone up. Our gas bill, we changed the unit out in 2023, but our gas bill in the summer, in January of 2023, was almost $500. And it was because they said, well, we had some pipeline that shut down, and so we had a constriction of supply. Because I said, how could that happen? So you never know.
This kind of goes to Ron's point. So I was laying in bed last night, kind of chuckling like, wait till Fox News gets a hold of this. You can have my affordable, reliable gas heater when you pry it from my warm and toasty dead hand. And it was kind of funny. And it was like, when this gets out, there could potentially be a lot of.
You know, that was one of the things I was concerned about. At some point, we're gonna get smashed in the media, and when this starts percolating out there, that there's this type of issue, especially for the poor, fairly poor people. I mean, wealthy people like us, we can do it. But
And I don't think anyone was here.
there's a
I'm
lot
pretty
of-
sure no one was here, but I have 3 words: beach fire rings.
Anyway,
So, which is why
I was here.
your bosses got used. But anyway, I'm just saying Derek's shop should be like have talking points and stuff if this does hit the fan, which you have to assume it will at some point.
Yeah.
Of course.
So
Appreciated the comments on the outreach needed for this.
The other thing too is with the water heaters. Now, we changed out in the summertime. And then in November, we started running the heater a little bit. Then December got, again, Ukaipa, 2,800 feet elevation. It got real cold in December. And whatever the manufacturer had as far as settings on the heat pump, it wasn't right. And it took a month they kept making adjustments and doing things. So we went for a month without heat. When you turn the thing on, it was blowing cold air. So I'd hate to think of something like that happening with water heaters. Imagine going a month without hot water.
I think there's some issues with businesses in strip malls.
Strip malls, yeah.
Because if you have a little restaurant or a dry cleaner, you need hot water
All the time.
for that. But you can't do it. It will be up to the landlord to do it. And then the question is, can they just automatically increase? I mean, there are some issues with business communities. So we've heard, I think Larry's heard some stuff from Larry used to own a dry cleaner operation, so.
Okay, so I think we're going to continue to hear comments at set hearing, and we're getting a good preview of the kinds of conversations we're going to have. I think we're going to get some more at the set hearing item.
They're gonna
Um,
duct tape.
I'm gonna be quiet.
Okay, I don't see any other hands here on Zoom or in the room, so appreciate the robust discussion. More to follow. We're going to keep going. So let's move on to 1159.1, and I'm going to take Mike out of the hot seat and the cooled seat, the heat pumps, and we'll turn it over to Kalam for this update on the second.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kalam Chang, I'm Planning and Rules Manager. Proposed Rule 1159.1, it regulates emissions of nitrogen oxides, NOx emissions from nitric acid tanks. NOx emissions are formed very differently from this universe. They're formed by a chemical reaction between nitric acid and metals. It can also be formed by decomposition of the nitric acid under a high temperature. This proposal is also the last landing rule for the transition of the rebate program, and it establishes requirements for BART, that's available retrofit control technology. This proposal is expected to impact about 255 facilities. Facilities with high emissions, they will be required to install air pollution control device to meet the BART requirements. For other facilities, they have two alternatives. They could either demonstrate that their emissions are below a certain threshold based on a one-time source test, or they could demonstrate low use through reporting their nitric acid usage. And this proposal will result in about 0.11 tons per day of NOx reductions, and cost effectiveness is estimated to be about $37,000 per ton of NOx reduced. We work very closely with our stakeholders throughout the rulemaking process, and we're not aware of any key remaining issues.
Do you have a listing of where these facilities are, the facilities that would be affected by this?
It's only refineries, isn't it?
There is a diverse universe here. A lot of these are aerospace companies and also medical computer manufacturing where they have to process metals. So we do have a list of these facilities that are included in our staff report and they're available.
Okay. But I thought only 7 facilities are gonna be impacted directly.
That's correct.
And those are probably, I'm guessing refineries. No?
No, because this
I had
is
a
more,
bad guess
the
then.
emissions are formed from a chemical reaction between the acid and metal. So a lot of these facilities, they process metal processing facility, metal reclamation, metal finishing facilities. So for facilities that have high usage, they typically are in the manufacturing business, medical manufacturing or aerospace.
I scratched out refineries.
You hate
I don't see any other hands raised on the Zoom. No questions, additional questions here. So thank you very much, Kalam. Appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and keep moving. So the third item on the board agenda is the board meeting calendar for next year, establishing that is going to look like a typical calendar like we see every year. I think the only difference there is that in January, proposing to, rather than going on the first Friday of January, which is right after New Year's, to kick that back a week. So the whole schedule in January moves back a week. Otherwise, I think that's going to be a normal calendar. Any questions on that one?
Usual dark and dry.
Dark
I
and
mean,
dry.
dark for us, not you guys.
Correct. Yes, exactly. Okay, let's go ahead and keep moving. So item number 4, executing contracts for database planning tools for medium and heavy duty truck charging networks. Dr. Hansen.
Yes, these are 2 projects here. One with UC Riverside, Center for Environmental Economics and Engineering. And then also with UC Irvine, Advanced Power Energy Program there. So the first one with UC Riverside is to develop a planning tool that's going to assist fleet owners on looking at the benefits of going to zero emission conversions for their trucks. Also probably some of the disbenefits of those conversions. And then the other part of that is really looking at charging station developers. So we're hoping this tool is going to help with our environmental pollution reduction grant that we received from EPA. on finding places to site charging stations for trucks on fleet owners. So you have to match up the power, you have to match up the land, have enough space to be able to install these stations for charging. The second part of this with UC Irvine is to work on a project called Vehicle to Home. So UC Irvine with the Department of Energy have been working on this development out in Menifee. They have a microgrid set up. It was a brand new key home development, pretty much all electric utilities for this home development. They have this microgrid set up with solar panels, battery storage, and this Vehicle to Home project will work with Kia with their new EV9 and a company called Wallbox next to Charger and something called Edison to demonstrate how the vehicles can power the homes or provide peak shaving during the time of use rates. And look at the benefits of not using backup generators in case of power outages. So I'll pause there with any questions on that project.
Seeing none?
Didn't,
Oh, yeah.
maybe it was a clean fuels thing, but there was some developer who was talking about, he's doing just, working with Edison to, yes, you have enough juice on this particular corner to, did you, a private company was, that maybe the clean fuels workshop? Maybe not. Anyway, this is very cool. So,
At the Clean Fuel Advisory Group meeting,
yeah, maybe.
that was Dan King, or I think we had, I don't know, I'll have to go back and look at that.
It's not important, but
Okay.
anyway, this is a big deal. It's not a lot of money and it's important.
So go ahead, move on to the next topic, which is also moving. This is for a Department of Water and Power settlement that we received for their generating stations back in 2023. Essentially, we're proposing to take the funds, provide it to the Los Angeles Zoo, which we're replacing 4 of their diesel electric trams or diesel trams with electric trams, along with a maintenance contract, 5 years for those trams. And then the remainder of the funds would go to 2 battery electric utility vehicles and also commercial garden, lawn and garden equipment for them to utilize. And with that, I'll pause if there are any questions about the project.
So what did DWP do to get in $400,000 of trouble?
One is for the Valley generating station. There was failure to maintain some of the natural gas fuel turbines. And then the other one was for the Harbor generation station. They had multiple violations for reclaimed trading credits. And that's all I really know on those.
Mark, your hands up?
Aaron, just really quickly, are those the same trams or the same manufacturer that do the trams at Universal Studios?
I'm not sure. I'll have to look at that.
I'm just curious because I've been on those. I when they were upgrading into electric, so I just was wondering if it was the same vendor.
Yeah, we supported those through Moyer at
Right.
Universal Studios.
Thank you.
Seeing no other hands raised, thank you, Aaron. Let's go to the next item, adopting resolution and recognizing revenue for continued AB 617 implementation. So Sujata, you want to cover this one?
Yes, good morning. So by way of background, this AB 617 money was received in May of 2024, and we received $22,213,333, of which we recognized in fiscal year 24-25 budget $20,336,700. So this action is to recognize the remaining $1,876,633. And we will come back to the board with another board letter for the spending part of it. I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Okay, seeing no hands raised, thank you, Sujata. So moving through the agenda, the next are the receive and files, which we'll take all those together, which is I think items 7 through 13, some standard reports here. We also have the AB 617 annual progress report, and I think other normal items that are in here. Any questions, comments on any of these? Oh, Mark, you have your hand raised on this.
Yeah, I know. Just on the rural forecast report, any updates?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Mark. Just one change that we'll be making our rule 1445. This is focused on our laser and plasma arc cutting rule. we're trying to respond back to some of the latest stakeholder inquiries, and just to cut to the chase, I'm going to propose to move that into first quarter next year.
Okay,
So it'll be not in December.
right. And the update of the forecast, the rule, the one that you do in December, that goes in the December board meeting, that's the one that then becomes the standard for 2025.
That's correct.
As it relates to people being able to comment or add,
Yeah.
for you as a board to be
Yeah.
able to, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
that's the important one.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for raising that. Okay. Any other questions on receive and file? Seeing none. So the last group are the committee reports, items 14 through, I guess, 20 from the board agenda. Any comments, questions on those?
Carb up to anything interesting?
They are looking, let's see here, for this meeting, I don't believe so, but they're always up to anything. Nothing else.
The LCFS is going to be on there. That should be interesting.
Right. I think they're bringing that after our board meeting, if I recall right.
November 8th.
November 8th.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think that takes us through the entirety of the board agenda. I think now we open this up for public comment, seeing if there's any questions or comments on the board agenda. So I see Rita Loof, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, Rita.
Yes, thank you. Rita Loof, Director of Environmental Affairs for RADTEC International. And first, I wanted to make a clarification based on Mike's comments that staff does not expect a lot of comments on 1151 because it was just Rita that had issues with the rule. I'm just the messenger for RADTEC. We're a nonprofit with a board similar to the district structure. So when you get a letter from me, you're getting a letter from 800 entities. And we wholeheartedly disagree with the assertion that there are no new record-keeping requirements in 1151. In fact, there are 4 pages worth of new requirements. I've been dealing with the district rules for over 35 years, so I know new mandates when I see them. I don't think that Rule 109 in its current form requires quantity emission reports, which are all over Rule 1151. So if it is, as Mike said, that the proposal is simply incorporating Rule 109 by reference, then why the pushback? Why not simply add language that says that Rule 109 requirements apply and that there are no new requirements? We ask the staff to please clearly state that the new requirements in the rule do not apply to UVEB LED. Please note that Rule 1151 is to increase the VOC limits for some categories up to 840 grams per liter, and our materials are less than 50. Staff also mentioned to the Station Resource Committee that they found an LED coating at 200 grams per liter. And we've asked staff to please provide us with the material safety data sheet as soon as possible so we can properly address staff's concerns. But keep in mind that even a 200 gram per liter coating would give the district an emissions reduction of 640 grams per liter, since the rule has limits at 840. We have consistently said we have no problem agreeing to a 50 gram per liter limit for any exemptions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rita. I don't see any other hands raised. I don't see anybody here in the room. So I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the next agenda item. Or is there any other business that anybody wants to raise here? Andy?
I'll just pitch Mojave's Sea Dog Conference, which is always really good. I got to go 1 year when it was actually local because I was working for a board member on the Mojave AQMD. Then I got to go 1 year because I knew the public information officer, and they got permission to comp me But anyway, it's in Vegas. It's always really good, but it's in Vegas and it's $530 for the conference. So but it's always really good. It's California Desert Air Working Group, CDOG, Mojave AQMD.
Desert.
Great. Thank you. Seeing no other items raised, I think we go to open public comment. So if there's any additional public comment on any items that aren't on the agenda but are in the purview of this group. Don't see any hands raised on Zoom, nobody in the room. So I think with that, we're going to go ahead and adjourn. Thank you everybody for your time today. Thanks for showing up on a quiet day today. So,
Media total solar conversion.
Thanks.
thanks everybody.
Great, I think.